Today we are using one-point perspective to create buildings that are popping out into outer space. For this project, you will need a pencil, a ruler, and paper. We're going to start by planning out where the planet will go. I'm going to draw an arch to create my planet popping into the scene. Now we are going to create our perspective buildings. You need to create squares or rectangles all around your page. You can start with just one, or you can create as many as you'd like. I'm going to make 3. Now you need to create your vanishing point, so create a dot anywhere on your planet. I'm putting mine right here. Begin with the box closest to the vanishing point. You are going to be using your ruler to connect the bottom 3 corners to the vanishing point. Always double check your ruler is lined up before you draw. Place your pencil in the corner, line up the ruler, and draw your line all the way to the vanishing point. Repeat this step for all 3 bottom corners. Don't forget to erase the part of the planet that is now behind the building. Move on to the next box that is closest to the vanishing point. So I'm moving on to this one here on the right. Always double check that your ruler is lined up. For this box, I'm only going to see one side of it. If you take your ruler and you line up with a corner and you realize you are going to go through the box, then don't draw that line. Check this corner as well. If you realize it lines up perfectly with your other line, you do not need to draw the line in again. So for this box, I see 2 sides, but for the one I just drew, I only see one. Again, do not forget to erase the planet behind the building. For the building in the back, there might be some overlapping. I'm checking my first corner and it can go all the way down to the vanishing point without overlapping another building. But over here in the corner, if I line up my ruler to the vanishing point and begin to draw a line, I'm going to go through the building in front of it. So I need to make sure I stop before I go all the way down to the vanishing point. So draw your line and stop. I lined up the final corner and it could go all the way down without overlapping, so I finished my box. Don't forget to erase the part near the bottom where the building is covering the planet. If you plan to paint with watercolors later on, I recommend outlining with Sharpie. When you outline with your Sharpie, make sure you use your ruler to keep your lines straight. Now that our buildings are finished, it's time to get creative and add details. You can add details to your planet, to the tops of your building. So I'm adding a few UFOs. I'm going to add a pool on top of one, maybe a little antenna. You get creative with what you add to your scene, as well as the area around your building. If you decide to add windows, make sure as you go down the building, you start to create them closer together. When you get near the bottom, Really, you can just add some quick choppy lines. You don't need to see as much detail down there. So for the circles, same thing. As I move down, they're getting smaller and smaller to the point where they're just tiny little dots. Don't forget about your background. I'm going to add a UFO and some other planets to mine, so get creative with what is happening in your scene. Now it's time to color. One final tip to help create your illusion of space would be to use value. Value is when you have dark and light areas. So coloring one side of your box a little bit darker, or having it get darker as it goes down, will help create that illusion of three-dimensional space. I used crayon for a lot of my drawings, so now I'm going to use watercolors. Crayons help resist the watercolors, so they'll keep your buildings a little bit more neat. If you have watercolors at home, this is a great project to try out. I will say my paper is a little bit thin for these watercolors, but if you have a thicker paper, they're really going to work well. You could do a wet on wet technique, where you fill your paper with water first and then drop in the color. You could also sprinkle a little bit of salt on while your watercolors are still very wet, and that will help create some stars in your background. I also decided to use my knowledge of color, and I wanted to create some contrast. So I have warm colors on my planet and cool colors in the sky. This really helps everything pop. I hope you have fun creating your perspective planet. I cannot wait to see what you post on the Padlet.